So Trump has now said out loud that he wants to abolish the separation of church and state. And I think what he said, which I'm about to show you, really points to how the Trump regime is trying to change the image of the United States into a white Christian nationalist state ruled under an authoritarian leader.
They say separation between church and state, they told me. I said, all right, let's forget about that for one time. We said, really, the separation? I don't know. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure. But whether there's separation or not, you guys are in the White House.
Let's forget about it for one time. That's what our president said about separation of church and state, which is enshrined in our nation's Constitution, in the First Amendment, in the Establishment Clause, which prohibits Congress from establishing a national religion. The founders of our nation stressed the importance of this separation to preserve both faith and liberty. When you do not have strong protections around the separation of church and state, you run the risk of your country transforming into a theocracy, which are inherently oppressive forms of rule. Under theocracies, we almost always see suppression of dissent, a lack of democratic values, identity-based oppression, and many more other evils that strip the humanity out of its people. Both times Trump has been elected, he has relied heavily on white Christians, and he knows this. And since taking office this time, he's established the White House Faith Office, which its senior advisor says that prayer isn't a religious act, it's a national necessity. Does that sound like separation of church and state? I don't think so. He's established a Religious Liberty Commission, which is what he was talking about in that clip I showed you, which has a focus on eradicating anti-Christian bias. He's also created the task force in combating anti-Christian bias. It's called something like that, which has the same exact task. He's also instructed the State Department employees to rat out on each other if they exhibit anti-Christian bias. He's also directed the Department of Justice, the DOJ, to focus not on counterterrorism or breaking up monopolies, but no, to eradicate and prosecute anti-Christian bias. Because of that, over 2/3 of the DOJ's civil rights wing, all of its lawyers, have left. They quit. And if we want to look at the numbers, 53% of Republicans identify as adherents to Christian nationalism or sympathizers to Christian nationalism. These people voted Trump into office because they want to see their visions fulfilled. When you combine this with the Trump regime's efforts to eradicate DEI, which translates to any diversity in our government, any diversity in anything related to our government, such as removing artifacts from the Black History Museum, such as purging pages that talk about minorities or marginalized groups in our web pages online, or banning every country in Africa from entering the United States on a visa but allowing European countries to come in, and at the same time encouraging white South Africans to come in at a time when we are deporting or want to deport tens of millions, it begins forming a very frightening picture. The Trump regime is purging our country of black and brown people, at the same time encouraging white immigration and encouraging white people to have more babies. And it is true, the United States favors, as it always has been, white Christians to hold power. But what we are witnessing now is a reshaping of the foundations of this country that will lead to the eradication and erosion of rights of any other group who is not white and Christian. And where's the authoritarian part? It's not hard for me to get this point across, but there's nothing that stands in the way of Trump's actions at this point. He controls Congress. He's overruled the courts, the Supreme Court. He is in open defiance of. There's nothing we can do to stop him from enacting his agenda. Nothing at all. Considering the fact that Trump has been suppressing dissent by weaponizing ICE's deportation machinery, this paints a very scary picture. He has told openly to President Bukele, the president of El Salvador, that homegrowns, U.S. citizens, are next to be deported. This deportation machinery, ICE, is Trump's secret police, the Schutzstaffel. It's not hard to see it. They are whisking people away in the night without any due process, deporting them overseas to a torture camp known for its abuse. All this has been paving the way for the next step that lies before us, for dissenting citizens of the United States to be thrown out of this country with this same deportation machinery without any due process. I don't know when it will happen, but I know that I am preparing for that day. This video does not even come close to covering everything that there is to be said about this topic. I didn't even get to talk about any of the repression of protesters in this country, especially in the pro-Palestine movement, or the pervasive racism that permeates MAGA and Donald Trump's politics. But as of now, I feel like a lot of you will be convinced that this regime is seeking to mold the United States into a Christian nationalist state under an authoritarian leader who has disbarred any barriers that were standing in his way. Thank you, and you can support my work in my bio.